In this video, we're going to talk about some really important basic commands here in Cinema 4D, like for example the navigation or the transform tools or the selections and the viewports as well. So let's get started, and let's start with this little icon right here. This is the first that we're gonna see, but also one of the most interesting and important for beginners, because this will let you access to a really huge library of objects, materials, scenes that you can use to learn and study the Cinema 4D software. So let's click here, and it's gonna open up this additional panel. And here we can start to filter what we are looking for. So for example, if I want to look for complex scenes, I can activate this, and I can go, for example, here in the new content, and these are the latest scenes that you can use, and also you can see the latest objects or the latest materials and so on. Now, I don't want to start with something too complex like an entire scene, but I want to use an object. So you can see here that by filtering objects, you can go down and you have a lot of different folders and subfolders. Now, each one of these contains a lot of 3D objects, a lot of 3D models that you can use for your project. And we can also understand from here how many projects, how many different types of projects we can develop with Cinema 4D. We can do graphic design, we can do interior design, we can do architecture, we can do infographics, packaging, product design, and whatever you find here. We can do vehicles, so we can work in automotive, toy design. Really, there are a lot of possibilities. Now for this video, you can select whatever you want here. I think I'm going to go with the bathroom here, or the bedroom. Okay, I'm gonna get a nice bed here. Now you can also click on this little heart if you want to place a model in the favorites. So then you will find it right here in the main folders, favorite folder. And then if you want to insert it in your scene, first you need to download this from the cloud or library, online library. So you need to have an internet connection, and you need to wait also because it depends how big is the file and the size of the file. Okay, now it's ready. You can see that the little cloud icon has disappeared, so I can click here and drag it into the scene. It's so simple and easy to get things inside the scene. Now I can click with the scroll wheel and watch this in the various views, and you can see that this is a really high poly, high detailed model. I can see here all black because each line here represents a structure line. So each one of these is a polygon. So this looks pretty heavy, but also you can see how Cinema 4D can handle a lot of polygons. So you can, for example, use this for sculpting and, again, really fine detail modeling. Okay, now we can close the asset browser. We're gonna come back here in other videos because it's really handy. And let's recap here with the navigation system. So if you hold Alt and click with the left mouse, you're gonna orbit around, and if you keep holding Alt and press the scroll wheel, you can pan, and the right mouse is gonna zoom, and you can also zoom by scrolling the scroll wheel. Okay, now let's press the scroll wheel to maximize the view and check out this beautiful bed real close. And this is a giant group, so if you go here in the object, we're going to start to talk about the hierarchies that we were anticipating in the previous video. So if we click on this plus icon, we're going to discover that this is a group, and inside it has some subgroups, and again inside it's going to have other subgroups and other subgroups and so on. So until you get into the actual models, into the actual meshes or parametric objects and so on. So for example, here I can see that these are simple cylinders that I can also select directly by clicking on them. So I can use the viewport here to select things, or I can use the objects panel. Now, talking about this selection, you can select a particular object and then continue to select by holding the Shift key, and if you hold the Control key, you're gonna deselect. Okay, so select and deselect, and also you have different ways to select. So let's go here back in the toolbar, and this first one will let you open your command that you need. For example, if I want to zoom, I can type zoom, and it's gonna show me all the different commands concerning the zoom. So I can use this ask to exit, and then the second one here is the live selection, which is substantially a way to select, like if you are brushing things out. So it's like a brush selection. If you hold here with the left mouse, you're gonna open up this menu, and if you want to undock this menu, you can click on that dashed or dotted line, and you can change here, for example, the selection. You have, for example, rectangle selection, okay, to select only part of your scene of your model. And then you have lasso selection, which is like a end drawing selection. And you have polygon selection, which looks like the Photoshop polygonal lasso. And right click to confirm. So you have different ways you can select the objects in your scene. And I also want to anticipate a really handy tool or command that you find in the view. So if you want to get back to standard selection, just click on the move tool. So you can just select by clicking with the left mouse. Now, if you go to the view, okay, let's say that I'm interested in that part of my model. If I go to view, I can use the frame selected object. Now this is O or Alt O to do it quickly with the shortcut key. And this is really interesting because if I have a very small detail, I can go there quickly by using this command. Also, I can do frame geometry, which is gonna frame everything, or you can also do frame all if you have more objects and a bigger scene. Okay, so different types of selection, and you can also use selection filters. So for example, if I don't want to select any spline, so any 2D or any polygon, I can uncheck this. So I'm not going to select polygons using this. Or let's say, well, I don't want to select any null object, so any group, or I don't want to select any generator. Okay, so you can see that some of these are created by generators. So you can basically then deactivate everything, and now I cannot select anything, or I can activate all and I can select everything again. So these are selection filters basically. Okay, let's proceed. Then we have the move, rotate, and scale, which are also called the transform tools. So I need to select something, and if I want to select everything, I will select here my entire bed, and now I can move it. Now you can move it using the different arrows. So the red arrow represents the X axis, then we have the blue axis, which is the Z, and the epsilon axis, which is the epsilon. Now, other two important commands are Ctrl Z to go back and Ctrl epsilon to move forward. These are pretty common and popular. You can also find them here. So undo, Ctrl Z, redo, Ctrl epsilon, undo, Shift Z, and also other stuff here, which is pretty common, like the Ctrl X, Ctrl C, Ctrl V. So for example, if I want to copy this, I can select it and say Ctrl C, Ctrl V, and it's going to create a copy that I can then move aside because it's going to be placed in the exact position, so I need to move it. And also another way to copy is to use the transform tools in combination with the Control or Command key. If you use Mac, Command. If you use Windows, Control. Click, drag this with the left mouse, and that's my copy. Now I missed the rest of the bed, but you get the point. If you want to copy all the group, you need to select all the group, of course. So Alt Control and copy, and you will see the entire bed there. Okay, Control Z to go back, and I'm going to keep only those two. I want to delete this one, so I will go for the rectangle selection, selected, and also cancel or delete to delete everything that you have selected. Now let's go back here to the move, rotate, and scale. Now you can see that this is part of the same group here. So when I'm selecting the entire group, I'm going to move, rotate, and scale everything that's inside. Otherwise, I can select, for example, this single entity and work only with that. So be careful what you are selecting. Now, if you want to move in 2 dimensions, you can use those little triangles. Right now I'm moving in the Z and X, and this one here is epsilon and Z. And also, if I don't select any of these gizmos, I can click and drag with the left mouse. I'm going to move it completely free without any constraint. So let's go back again. Rotation, it's pretty similar. So you have the rotation on the Z, rotation on the epsilon, rotation on the X. If you want free rotation, again, just click anywhere inside this gray circle here, and you can rotate however you want. Okay, now let's go to the scale, and you can scale this in 1 dimension. You can scale this in 2 dimension. So keeping only 1 dimension fixed and the other are changing. If you want to scale anything uniformly, you can you can click anywhere but not selecting any of these. So this is a perfect scale, 3D scale, keeping all the proportions. Okay, let's move on. This one here is place. Now I can select this and start to move it around to place it on a particular surface. So it's gonna detect, sorry, right now I'm scaling again. So be careful, because also here you have rotate, scale, and move. So this one is move, and I can detect any face and the orientation of that face, which is the normal. It's a perpendicular line that is gonna go pointing outside. That's the normal, and that's how the model is gonna be positioned on that object. And this is really handy when you have to place something that is not perfectly, let's say, horizontal or vertical. Now you also have the possibility here also to move and to scale and to rotate based on that placement point. So really, really handy. This is one of the best new feature. Well, not too new, but pretty new. And this other one here is detecting the collisions with the rest of the scene. So it's another form of move, rotate, and scale. Everything is together, and it's gonna detect here the collision. You can see here, you can play around just like a video game. It's gonna be real fun. Well, I think I lost it, but Control Z to bring it back. Now we're gonna stop. We're gonna talk about this later. We're gonna stop with this toolbar. Let's move to this other one on the top. So let's check these 4 little buttons here. Now we're still talking about transformation. So this one here is to lock the various axes. So now if I click outside the arrows, it's not gonna move anymore. I just need to go and select an arrow or a plane to make the movement. If I unlock, for example, the epsilon, and click anywhere, this is gonna move only in the epsilon. So these are basically constrained. And you can do that also with the rotation. So right now I'm only rotating on the epsilon whenever I click. Okay, and of course also on the scale. So be careful if there are some constraints activated, because they will not let you work with a particular axis. Pretty easy to understand. And now we have the coordinate system. Now you have two types of coordinate system usually. One is the world coordinate system, or WCS, or the object coordinate system. Well, sometimes it's called also UCS. Now in this case, it's object or world. This is world, and you can see that the X, the epsilon, and the Z are aligned with the ones that you find in the world. So if I move this a little bit here, you can see that's the origin, and now these are perfectly aligned with that. In the object mode, you can see that these are aligned with the orientation of the object. So it's kind again of a normal pointing with the epsilon outside like that. And so if you want to scale, rotate, and move, you will do it according to the position and the rotation of the object, not of the world. So these are two types of transformation that you can set. Now let's talk about views. Now the views are actually part of your workspace, probably the most important part of your workspace, because here you can access, you can view your project, you can select and everything. Now when you want to customize the view, you can go here in the views menu. Now you can also undock a view, you can also do full screen mode. There are some operations with this kind of a hamburger menu. And then you have the view menu, where we found, for example, the framing commands, but also we have other stuff here that we probably check out later in the course. Now I want to show you this one here, which is configure. Now this is important because it will open up in the attributes panel the viewport attributes. So for example, you can see here I can give a title of this particular view. So I can call this perspective 1, and I can also use a camera. We're going to talk about cameras later on. I can use different projections. I can use parallel, or come back to perspective, or left, or back, and so on. I can use also different type of shadings. So if I want to see, for example, the structure of my object, I can go and use the lines, and I can see the wireframes, the ISO palms, the box view if I want something simpler, the skeleton if I use animation, and so on. So each type of shading here has its own purpose. So you need to select the one that you need in that moment. For example, if you don't need to work with materials, you don't need probably Goro shading. You just need to see the geometry. So you can go, for example, here in hidden line, and so on. Now you can also turn off materials from here and just see the model without wireframe and without materials. So these are other switches that you can turn on and off in the moment that you probably need to study some aspect of your 3D model. You have again filters. So for example, if I don't want to see null objects or 2D splines or cameras, or I don't want to see hair or polygonal object, generators, you can see that these are objects created with generators, and we're going to see about that later on. I don't want to see, for example, light, and so on. You get the idea. So you can turn on and off. You can also load some presets, or you can also save your preset. So let's call this JB preset. Okay, and then I can load whenever I want it. Save frames. Now this will appear. You can see. Well, let's click here in the middle and drag this. The save frames are those gray areas that I'm going to show you where you are actually seeing something or not. So if you render these, everything that's going to be in the gray area will not be displayed. So it's kind of showing you the safe part of the viewport. And you can use this or not, it depends on you. You can also change this, the opacity, and so on. You can also set the background, the heads-up display. For example, here I would like to see the viewport statistics, and you can see those right there. So it's going to show me how many triangles or polygons I'm using, how many lines, and so on. So this is really interesting. And again, you can also change the colors of the heads-up display and so on. I can also use stereoscopic if I have 3D glasses like anaglyphic or other types of glasses. So this is really interesting side by side. And then you can also check some effects. For example, here you can turn on shadows if you have lights, but right now we don't have lights. And also the ambient occlusion, it's really nice. It's gonna add that soft shadows around, and it's gonna look a little bit more realistic. And also you can change the parameters for all of this. Now I'm going to go fast here, but perhaps later in the course we're gonna come back here and use some of these parameters. This is just to show you where they are, and then you need to do a little bit of experiment by yourself. Okay, so if you go here in the other drop-down menus, you will find the same things. So how to change the camera, and also you have other isometric view, military, gentleman, different types of settings here for the camera. Well, let's go back to perspective right now. And also, again, you have the display styles, and you will find all the shortcut keys as well. Options. Also, we have level of details. If you have really complex objects, sometimes you can decrease the level of details if the object contains more than one level of detail. Otherwise, it's not going to change anything. Again, here the stereoscopic option, and again, you can turn on and off some effect. There you go. Again, ambient occlusion, tessellation, and other stuff that probably gonna check out later. Filters. Here again, I can see or not see something that I don't want to see. For example, here I can turn off the work plane or the world grid or other stuff in the viewport, perhaps, that I don't want to see. Well, another thing I want to show you how to deactivate is the axis and the world axis. So I have a nice clean viewport now. So let's finish here with the panel. So here you can change the layout. So for example, I can set this type of layout right here when I have 3 views at the top and one big perspective, or change it back to the original four-side view, or you can test others if you want. So this will conclude the lesson. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please subscribe to the channel and support us by joining. We're gonna create more videos, more video guides, and also stay tuned. And if you want to write comments, please write your questions and also suggestions for other users. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.